Well, are you ready, Spencer? It's time for another vlog. Two times this week. Two times this week now. Just stay here while mommy is gonna do his own thing. Well, daddy. Actually, daddy. Prepare my IMDb here and there we go. So yeah. What a great week for movies. I just skipped 2 weeks watching movies, and the week that I decided to come back, I got a double whammy. First one, my biggest surprise with The Substance. You already made a vlog out of it. And now, we got the latest Dreamworks movie. In which, that one I was actually anticipating, but at the same time, fear a little bit. The movie I'm talking about is none other than The Wild Robot. Ever since I saw the trailer, I was hooked into it. It looks really good, it looks cute, and I felt that it was going to be one of those heartfelt movies, almost in the same vein as The Iron Giant, which of course is actually one of my favorite movies that I can remember. And of course, there is another reason why I was anticipating this movie. And the answer is Chris Sanders. If you know me, I got a huge respect to Chris Sanders as an animator. He directed one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Lilo and Stitch. I love the Stitch franchise. I also love How to Train Your Dragon. I love The Croods. Okay, not everything from him is perfect. He did fall really hard with his live action adaptation with Call of the Wild. Chris, if you listen to me, do me a great favor. Stick to animation. Please. Stick to animation. I think live action is not for you. I'm sorry to say this, but I think you excel more on animation and on drawings than live action. Oh yeah, for those who doesn't know, he tried a webcomic. It's a webcomic named Kiskaloo. And I'm sad that he didn't continue too much about this with this webcomic because I saw that it had a lot of potential. But anyway, here I am. I'm going to talk about The Wild Robot. These are kind of like my thoughts on the trailer. Although I gotta admit that when the second trailer came, there were some worries that got me. And the biggest thing is that I felt like the trailer was giving too much. The trailer felt like it was giving too much away. And so after that, I tried to avoid the trailers like the plague because I didn't want it to be to spoil. And honestly, this is something that I complain with most trailers, especially when it's about animated trailers. For the most part, especially DreamWorks, when they don't have faith in some animated cartoon, and they decided that, well, we're gonna tell the whole story with with the trailers. Honestly, there should be a better way to showcase and promote trailers without spoiling the story. But another reason why I got a little bit worried is because I wasn't the only one anticipating this movie. I had someone who I knew who was also anticipating, but he also read the. I think that he read the books. I don't remember, but he was he was also very worried, and I gotta say, getting worried that, oh my god, this movie is not gonna be good and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my god, please don't suck, because honestly, DreamWorks. Okay, I don't hate DreamWorks. I actually like DreamWorks. For the most part, it was mostly when they don't they don't do all these cash grab movies. I will say that DreamWorks is better than Illuminations. I'll say that is kind of like the biggest thing I can say. But and well, after watching the Substance, then 2 days later, I was kind of doing some other stuff that I was getting busy, so I had to reschedule some of my plans. And unfortunately, the earliest I had to watch the Wild Robot, it was a 3D screening. So I decided to watch the movie in 3D. And I gotta say, fantastic. That movie was fantastic. I really like this movie. I do have certain nitpicks here and there because, like I said, even when I love a movie, I try to never overhype it. But honestly, I think this is probably the best animated movie I have seen this year from the list that I got this year so far. Yes, I am willing to say that this movie is a million times better than White People Problems 2, aka Inside Out 2. This movie has a lot of heart. I really want to meet Chris Sanders and wants to talk. I really want to talk to him and say, what is the key to his success on making heartfelt moments on these kind of movies? You can feel those kind of things mostly on Lilo and Stitch and even How to Train Your Dragon, and the Croods also. Although there are some parts of the Croods that is kind of like tongue in cheek, but when they do the things right, it does things right. Oh, and just in case, I'm aware that there's gonna be a Lilo and Stitch live action remake that I wish I want to ignore that it exists. All right. Let's try to get this over quickly because I want to finish this vlog without spoiling as much as it is. So, the Wild Robot. The main gist is about this robot we started out that it was abandoned on a remote island. It gets activated, and since she's a female robot, I don't know how to put it, into perspective because usually robots are genderless, but it has a female voice, so we can say that it is female. You know what? I'm overthinking this, but anyway, the robot is named Roll 7 something like that, but we call her. But then to make it easier, she's known as Ross. But the thing is that she gets activated in the middle of an island where animals live. She basically is kind of like this universal robot that helps human to complete their task. She's kind of like her own. At first, she's kind of like confused. She doesn't know what to do. The animals scare her. They ostracize her. They attack her, even though she doesn't even know where she is, how she got there. And then after a series of mishaps, she accidentally stumbles into a goose nest in which she accidentally kills the mother and some of the eggs, except for one, and she decides to take care of it. And then, of course, that after that, the egg, of course, it hatches, it imprints on her, and the robot decides that, well, I gotta take care of this little thing. Despite that, well, a lot of the odds are against her. Like, for example, the animals, they don't like the robot, but also they don't like the baby goose because, well, it is a runt. And you know that in nature, the strong survive, the weak dies, and usually the runts are the ones the first one to go. They have the lowest probability of survival. And from this point, it kind of turns into this kind of like coming of age story about the relationship between Ross the robot, the goose who she names Brightbill, and she also is accompanied by a fox named Fink, who at first the fox was kind of like this cunning guy who wants to eat the goose, but then he warms up and becomes kind of like the surrogate father, let's say, or the surrogate uncle if you want to go for it. But at the same time, these are kind of like the characters that they kind of grow into a family in which they have to adapt from the wilderness and find a way to cooperate despite all the odds. And of course, the robot trying to find a meaning on her, or what her purpose, what her life, where she come from, and if she's called herself defective, and while the other, of course, finding some acceptance here and there. It's kind of more like a coming of age family. But involving a robot and talking animals. For the sake of turning into this fable, we got the animals talk. And honestly, from this point, I should stop talking with a lot of the elements of how the movie progresses, because the movie brilliantly showcases the kind of like the state of motherhood or parenthood. It's the relationship with the robot, how this little runt of a goose is, who is against all odds. They say it was supposed to die because, well, it's a runt, and then nobody pay attention to her. But just like also when a human takes pity on a runt of the litter of an animal, with the proper care and the proper love itself, even a runt can survive and beat all odds. And this is something that it kind of becomes an extra layer of sympathy, considering that we're talking on the perspective of automated artificial intelligence, in which even the movie kind of makes a point that usually these kind of beings, they don't feel, they are just programmed, but then maybe there's some kind of thing that they can probably accept itself into forming some kind of life. Although don't get me wrong, it's not something that I will say that I'm gonna hate artificial intelligence, because, well, there is a pro and a con to artificial intelligence. Trust me, me as an artist, I don't like using artificial intelligence as an art. Most of artificial intelligence art suck. AI art sucks for a lot of things. And AI scripts in which you can do with ChatGPT, they're awful. And when you rely on something like that, you can tell that is synthetic, there's no heart, not anything. But when there is something that is done with a semblance of effort, and even with the character, with a robot itself, it shows that there is some genuine heart into it, and it doesn't feel that way. And well, that's kind of like the brilliance that I have with the story, that I love in the story. There were moments that I did want to kind of crack a tear, because, man, it's so, honestly, I can relate more to this movie, and thinking about my parents, how they took me on my wings. How is it a movie that is about AI learning to cope with learning feelings, emotions? It has more heart than a movie about emotions dealing with white people problems. I've been going a little bit too long about that, which usually I leave that at last. But here's the thing that it almost dropped me off guard, and that is that when the movie starts, the robot talk. And let me tell you, because I ignored the trailers, I didn't know that. I thought that the movie was gonna be, how can I say, the robot not talking. But then, when the movie starts, the robot talk, and I was like, oh no. Because honestly, I thought that the movie was gonna play out, a little bit more artistically, saying that we'll not hear the robots say what it's thinking. It's gonna be a little bit like Wall-E, let's say. But then it started talking, and of course the voice is Lupita Nyong'o. And I was like, oh my god, this some of the dialogue honestly was a little bit cheesy. I gotta be honest. And for the first moment of the movie, I was like, you know what? Maybe the movie could have been better if the robot didn't talk. But the more the movie went on, the movie finally kind of justifies itself on having the robot talk. And honestly, I gotta give credit to Lupita Nyong'o as Roz, because she did a good job on voicing a little bit kind of like robotic voice, but not in the sense that it felt cold. Almost like GLaDOS, let's say, but less sarcastic. Man, Lupita Nyong'o, for a character that she went from those shitty Star Wars movies, and from okay performances that I think so from the Black Panther movies, I gotta say she gained my respect. I mean, this is the second time in a year that she gained my respect, especially with her excellent performance in A Quiet Place Day One, and this is another one of those. Yeah, there's also kind of like other voice actors. We got Pedro Pascal as the Fox Fink, and I gotta say that guy was kind of like my favorite character because he was kind of like the most sarcastic of them. It was kind of like them. It's kind of like the one who knows the way of the nature and all this stuff, and sometimes he had to be a little bit sneaky, and his sarcasm, I like that. And cats are the things that foxes do. And then we get Bright Bill, who we see him, from a kid, and he's voiced both by a child, and then he's voiced by Kit Connor. And then we get other characters, like for example, we got Catherine O'Hara as Possum, named Pinktail. There's a hawk, who's voiced by Big Rames. What else there is? There's Matt Berry, who he voices a beaver who has kind of like this epic quest to bring down this giant tree. There's also Bill Nighy, who voices an old goose who gets interested on Bright Bill. Oh yeah, and there's also Mark Hamill is also there. Mark Hamill, he voices the bear. And funny thing, I was watching the review of Double Toasted, and they were saying that they don't recognize Mark Hamill's voice, and I was like, have you ever seen other Mark Hamill's voices? The guy, he's so talented on voice acting that he can transform his voice acting. So this is much of the things that I have to say about most of the acting. There is, speaking of some of the elements of the voice acting and all this stuff, I do admit that there are some jokes that they go a little bit dark, but they're kind of like hilarious. One of them, it kind of involves, like, for example, I got 7 children. Ah! Oh, I mean 6. But unfortunately, they don't go too far, and they kind of dodge the bullet in this one. I'm not gonna spoil too much what it is, but they kind of dodge the bullet. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. It's almost like someone puts out during have you seen the movie of DreamWorks called Turbo? There was kind of like these dark jokes in which the snails goes by, they are doing their day, and then a pigeon comes and they grab one of the snails and it goes no, and the other one is like, oh well, there goes Frank. Something like that. Okay, animation wise, again, I usually don't go the easy route saying that. Well, animation is too easy is too easy. It's too easy in the term that they're all professional animators. They all know their craft. This one I'll say that it's good. I like the special effects. I like the bright lighting that they do. Some of the textures is a little bit compared to, how can I say, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, just a little bit with some certain style, but I like it. I also like the design of Roz. She kind of looks like one of those golems that, in ways, she could fit in right on in the Dragon Ball universe. I don't know why that comes into my mind. But I also want to say that the music is brilliant. I really like the music. This is one of the best orchestral music I have seen for an animated movie. Well, we still have a few more months for how can I say, we still have a few more months, I'll say, and like I said, now a little bit, how can I say, I already mentioned too much about the themes that it correlates about the parental love between the how can I say, a baby goose and a robot, and how they relate to each other, battling, the prejudice of the runt, the robot trying to find its place its task or its purpose, and it really deals some, how can I say, some heavy themes that it doesn't punch you in the face, but it doesn't sugarcoat too much. Okay, yeah, there is some moment that it feels magical and very uplifting, but you feel like it earns it. In ways, if I want to compare it, I think this movie does a million times better than Migration. Because here's the thing, Illumination is usually, they always want to pander, saying that, hey, look at this, let's make something like a comedy or something like that and make it so fun. Most of the time, I think that Illumination almost never goes, into the gut punch on creating kind of like a more kind of like visual, interesting story. And it's like I said, that Migration, I did say that it wasn't a bad movie. It was good, but I think it could have been better. And I always stick that the Migration movie could have been better if they could kill off one of the kids. If they could have killed off one of the kids, I think I could have given it a lot more respect than it is. And the Wild Robot, well, it's not exactly necessarily dark, I'll say, but it plays out the cards right out in some term, and the whole journey feels earned. Oh yeah, there's also kind of like a climax in which, of course, it kind of has kind of like this action scene in which, well, they needed some kind of villain or something like that, and well, it feels kind of like earned. I'm not gonna go too much into that. I mean, I haven't read the book, so I don't know how much faithful it is to the book. But either way, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Look at How to Train Your Dragon. How to Train Your Dragon is based on those books, and is a really wild misdirection from the books, and it still works really well. So you know what? If you see this vlog, I think I already talked enough. I urge you to either go watch The Wild Robot if you want to make your children happy, or not your children, just your whole family. the whole family very happy because it's a really wholesome, very tender movie that you feel rewarded for it. Or probably if you're sick or you want something with horror, then you can go to see the Substance. But trust me, that is a wild robot that it deserves a real good wild card. The biggest wild card of movies I have ever seen this year.